Okay, let's take a deep dive. Today we're heading deep into, well, a whole world, really. The Amazon rainforest is just this incredible source of life, but it's also facing immense challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And our exploration today, it really comes from that tension. It's a story that, yes, starts with tragedy, but it's also driven by a remarkable promise.
We've been digging into a lot of material reports, notes, interviews, things that really bring this critical subject to life. What does it actually take to protect somewhere so vital?
And that's our mission here, to unpack the story behind a really important book that emerged from all this. A book that amplifies the voices we absolutely have to listen to if we want to save the Amazon.
Right. And understanding why their knowledge, their perspective is maybe the most critical tool we have right now.
Exactly.
So this really begins with one person, a journalist named Dom Phillips. And from everything we've seen, he wasn't your typical reporter just chasing the next big story.
No, not at all. What comes through so strongly is his deep personal connection to the Amazon. It wasn't just an assignment for him. It felt more like a passion.
Yeah, people described him preferring to be out there, really in it, boots on the ground in tough conditions rather than sitting behind a desk.
Right. He wrote for The Guardian,
Yeah.
and his writing,
Yeah.
it had this way of just putting you right there in the rainforest. You could almost feel it.
And his core idea for a book, it was so, well, simple on the surface, but really powerful.
hmm
It wasn't necessarily about focusing on governments or big NGOs. It was about the people usually overlooked, right? The indigenous communities, the local activists.
The people living it, the ones who truly understand the forest because it's their home. That
Yeah.
was his central insight.
His vision, it seems, was that the real answers for saving the Amazon, they don't just come from technology or policies decided miles away.
No, they come from the people who've been stewards of that land for generations. They owe this incredible depth of knowledge, practical wisdom. It's a perspective that, well, often gets drowned out by louder voices looking for quick fixes.
He wanted to elevate those voices.
Precisely.
And that dedication took him on a research trip back in June 2022, deep into Brazil's Javari Valley.
And the material makes it clear this place isn't just remote. It's incredibly isolated, difficult even for modern tech like GPS, truly off the grid.
Wow. And he wasn't alone. He was with Bruno Pereira.
Yeah, Bruno, an expert on indigenous rights, someone who knew that specific, complex region intimately, like the back of his hand, people said.
And they were there working, investigating, looking into the local resistance against things like illegal logging, mining, fishing.
Activities that were just devastating the area,
Yeah.
treating the Amazon, as one source put it so vividly, like a piñata, just something to be smashed open for profit.
And digging into that, well, it put them in danger.
Tragically, yes. Their investigation threatened powerful interests. They were ambushed, they were shot and killed.
It's just horrific. The news sent shockwaves, obviously, especially for those who knew their work, knew what they were fighting for.
A huge blow to the fight for the Amazon and its people.
But even in the face of that awful loss, something else happened. Dom's widow, Alessandra Sampaio, she stepped up.
She became this incredible driving force, rallying people, making sure his work, his mission, wouldn't just vanish with him.
And this group formed around her, 5 key friends and colleagues committed to finishing his book.
Yeah, we learned about him. Jonathan Watts, who's the Guardian's global environment editor, Andrew Fishman from The Intercept Brazil, Dom's literary agent Rebecca Carter, a friend from his earlier music journalism days, David Davies, and Tom Hennigan, who covers Latin America for the Irish Times.
Quite a team. They called themselves Dom's tribe, didn't they?
They did. It shows that deep connection.
Yeah.
They were united by this conviction. Dom's message was too important to be silenced. It had to get out there.
So what were they actually working with? What did Dom leave behind?
Well, there was an introduction, nearly 4 completed chapters, a pretty detailed outline for the rest of the book, and a lot of handwritten notes.
Oh, yes, the famous scribbly notes.
Exactly. Apparently, deciphering those was a challenge in itself.
I can only imagine, like trying to read a doctor's prescription written during an earthquake.
Huh. Probably something like that.
Mhm.
But they also had more, records from his previous reporting trips,
Yeah.
interviews he'd already done, his published articles that really captured the Amazon's beauty, but also its struggles.
Still, pulling all those pieces together, introduction, chapters, outlines, scribbly notes, old interviews, it sounds like a massive job. One source called it a Herculean task.
Absolutely. Trying to channel Dom's specific voice, his unique curiosity, and build a whole book from these fragments, like a really complex jigsaw puzzle, you could say.
So how did they manage it?
They tackled it as a team. divided up the work. Some focused on editing and polishing the chapters Dom had already written. Others took on the task of writing the missing sections, using his detailed outline as their map.
And crucially, they didn't just rely on the existing material, they went back.
Yeah, that's amazing dedication. Despite the obvious dangers, they traveled back to the Amazon. They retraced some of Dom's steps, did new interviews, fact-checked everything on the ground. They wanted to ensure the book was as complete and accurate as possible.
It must have taken resources.
It did, and that's where crowdfunding played a key role. They raised over £24,000 online from people who believed in the project, a real testament to how much Dom's work resonated.
Before we get into the book itself, maybe let's just take a step back. Remind ourselves why this matters so much. Why the Amazon? It's more than just trees, right?
Oh, infinitely more. It gets called the planet's lungs all the time, and for good reason. It produces a huge amount of our oxygen, absorbs vast quantities of CO2. It really does function like this giant global air purifier.
And the life within it. It's just staggering.
Mind-boggling biodiversity. Millions of species jaguars, tiny colorful frogs, insects we haven't even discovered yet. It's this irreplaceable library of life.
And people. Indigenous communities who've lived there for centuries.
Exactly. Their knowledge, their connection to the forest, it's incredibly deep. They've been its protectors for generations.
Yet, it's under constant relentless assault. Illegal logging, mining that poisons rivers, poaching.
Yeah, that piñata image again. It's being exploited violently, treated like an endless resource to be plundered, not the vital living system it is.
And these aren't abstract threats. They hit the people living there directly, threaten their cultures, their survival, and the fallout affects all of us through climate change.
Right, and that's key to Dom's work and the book. It wasn't just about cataloging the destruction. It was about finding solutions within the Amazon from the people facing these threats.
Which brings us to the finished book, How to Save the Amazon. Ask the people who know.
And reading about it, it sounds less like a dry report and more like, well, a love letter was how someone described it, to the forest and its people.
It weaves Dom's original writing together with the contributions from his friends, right? Including other journalists like Fabiano Masonov and David Biller from the AP.
Yeah, creating this really rich tapestry. It explores the Amazon's diversity, not just nature, but the incredible human diversity too. Cultures, languages, different ways of living.
And it dives into actual solutions being proposed and practiced by local people.
Things like sustainable farming methods that work with the ecosystem, not against it. Indigenous-led conservation projects drawing on traditional knowledge. Even clever strategies locals use to combat illegal activities.
And it presents these ideas directly from the source without being preachy.
Exactly. It lets the people doing the work speak for themselves.
And this book, it's landed as more than just a memorial. It feels like a real wake-up call.
Definitely. It underscores the urgency. The Amazon is facing destruction at an accelerating rate. Wildfires, often deliberately set by land grabbers.
And those deforestation stats are terrifying. Brazil saw a 15% increase in 2024, despite all the global pledges.
It's a stark number. It connects the fight for the Amazon directly to everything, to people, to justice, to our climate's future. I mean, fundamentally, how much do we value the air we breathe?
It really puts it in perspective, and the book itself has received major recognition.
It has. It won the Whiting Creative Nonfiction Grant in 2023. That's a significant award, $40,000. And interestingly, it was the first time the Whiting Grant went to a collaborative project.
Wow. What did the judges say about Dom's original work?
They praised his impressive levels of access, his deep moral curiosity. They noted how his writing just pulls you in, makes you feel like you're there, experiencing the Amazon alongside him.
But the story of Dom and Bruno also forces us to think about something bigger and darker.
Yeah, the risks journalists take when they shine a light into dangerous corners.
It's a global issue. Reporters Without Borders counted over 50 journalists killed worldwide in 2024 alone.
And reporting on environmental crimes, especially in places like Brazil, where big money and powerful, sometimes criminal interests are involved, it's incredibly dangerous work. You become a target.
Their deaths are just this heartbreaking reminder of the price people can pay for telling the truth.
But even through that violence, their work endures. The story lives on in this book.
And one of the most powerful things the book seems to do is challenge how we usually think about conservation.
It really kind of flips the script.
How so?
Well, often the narrative is, environmentalists versus industry, debated in conference rooms.
Right. Experts in suits.
Exactly. But Dom's perspective and the book's core message is that the real experts aren't necessarily those people. They're the local communities,
Hmm.
the indigenous farmers, the river guides, the elders. They have the deep, practical, lived knowledge.
So the book prioritizes their voices, their expertise.
Precisely. It shifts the authority, saying
Hmm.
these are the people we need to listen to if we're serious about saving the Amazon. It's a fundamental change in perspective.
Now, obviously, the subject is incredibly serious, but we heard there were some lighter moments in the story of making the book, human touches.
Oh, for sure. You get these little glimpses, like picturing Dom trying to take notes, maybe knee-deep in mud, with some parrot squawking its opinions nearby.
Ha! And the team trying to decipher those notes later on.
Yeah, you can just imagine them huddled together, maybe laughing through the frustration, trying to figure out what a particular scribble meant.
Adds a human element to the intense work.
Definitely. And apparently the book includes stories like one about a local activist using their intimate knowledge of the river and just a canoe to completely outsmart illegal loggers. Little moments of ingenuity and resistance.
So it balances the grim reality with some of that on-the-ground resilience and maybe wry observation.
It seems so. It captures the complexity.
And ultimately, the book isn't just meant to be read passively. It's framed as an invitation, isn't it? An invitation to act.
Yes. It suggests concrete things you, the listener, can consider. Supporting indigenous land rights, pushing for stronger laws against illegal logging and mining, or even just sharing the knowledge, making more people aware.
And there's a specific date for people in the U.S. to look out for.
Right, the U.S. release is set for June 10th, 2025. So that's a tangible way for people to engage directly with this story and these ideas soon.
And the hope behind it all. What did the team want the book to achieve?
They want it to spark conversations,
Yeah.
definitely, to influence policy, maybe even inspire more people to get involved in whatever way they can.
It comes back to that idea of journalism having power, even against huge challenges.
Exactly. As Jonathan Watts said, you fall back on what you know best. For them, that was journalism. And this book is a powerful example of that.
So when you look at Dom Phillips's legacy, his death was undeniably a tragedy, a huge loss. But finishing his work, that feels like a real victory.
It really does. His friends didn't just edit a manuscript. They carried his mission forward. They made sure his voice, and crucially, the voices he championed, weren't silenced.
How to save the Amazon? Ask the people who know. It stands as this incredible testament to friendship, to courage, to the vital need for truth-telling.
And to the resilience of the Amazon itself and the people who call it home.
So the key takeaway for us, I think, is pretty clear. The future of places like the Amazon really depends on us learning to listen, listening to the wisdom of the people who live there, and supporting the courage of those who share their stories.
Absolutely.
Which leaves a final thought for you, our listeners, to mull over. What responsibility do we have individually to seek out and truly hear the voices from the front lines of environmental crises, even when they seem worlds away?